Welcome back again to Mainline Healthy Living, our show where we talk with local health experts and healthy living experts about various topics that are of interest to you. And today we're talking again with Judy Coplan, our infant massage expert with a background in physical therapy and lots of work with parents and children and very, very young children. Today we're talking about childhood obesity. Now this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem, no pun intended. So where do we begin here in terms of working with very young children? Because it sounds important to start out on the right foot.
I would actually think of starting out with a baby because it's very noticeable in children by the time they're school aged and things like that. But fat cells start accumulating in the body right from infancy.
Right.
So the first thing is, if you can have a breastfeeding mother, that is the most optimal for a baby. And the mother and the baby bond together and read each other's cues. And the mother will be able to tell the baby's getting drowsy or actually falls asleep, probably had enough breast milk at this time. For people that are bottle feeding their babies, it's a little harder. You have to really be attuned, not be watching television or something for the moms or dads that are bottle feeding. Really watch the baby for their cues, that they're getting full. After a while, you should be able to tell. The baby usually takes several, 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever, depending on the size of your baby and the age. There should be a pattern, but sometimes the baby might not feel like having the full amount, and sometimes the baby may want a little bit more, but you shouldn't feel like you have to stuff the baby.
Right.
I know when I was a child, my mother made sure I was not hungry in any means. Now, if the baby is hungry again in 2 or 3 hours, they can feed again. The more over full a baby gets, that's the very first sign that you could be going for a problem area in the feeding regimen.
Sure, because if you're starting out that young, getting used to kind of over consuming, then it becomes just an ingrained pattern before you. I mean, you're not even conscious, and you're already creating this reflex of overeating essentially.
And especially when the child comes to having food, a lot of times that might be by 4, 5, or 6 months. Again, you want to look for the baby's cues and go with, okay, the baby seems to be full, maybe pushing away or looking away instead of anticipating the spoon in a positive way.
Right.
I have a funny story.
Okay.
My first child was a premature baby, and my image of her, well beyond the infancy period of time, was she was a tiny little baby.
Right.
And so by the time she was 6 to 8 months old, we were moving, and I got the doctor's records, and the first line of the doctor's records were, "This mildly obese baby, da da da." And I went to my husband, and I said, "I made her obese. Oh my God, what do I do now?" So
so it's easy to do.
It's easy to do if your image is a very small baby. My baby was only 3 pounds at birth. So it took me a long time to realize.
And that's perfectly logical, right? You were trying to correct something, and you were kind of overcorrecting.
Exactly.
Right.
But so you really want to look for those baby's cues that I am full, and let them know their own. Like, if I'm feeling full, my mommy will listen to me, or my daddy will listen to me, and stop pushing in the extra food.
Well, I think you, in your funny story, also raise another interesting point that it's important to make sure you're having very good communication with your healthcare professionals when you're having checkups, things like that, to know how your baby sort of fits into the general profile of percentiles and things like that.
And especially the weight for their length.
Right, exactly. So you can be gauging that a little bit. I mean, again, it's not every child's a little bit different, but at least gives you some benchmarks to work with to say, okay, am I, not feeding enough, or am I overfeeding, or am I just right?
Because what they found now is that fat cells want to proliferate. They want to get more and more and more fat cells. It's a thing about
nature, right?
Yes. And we're actually creating. I mean, some fat is good. Obviously, you need fat to protect all your organs and things like that. But you don't want to have overproduction of fat cells, and it really begins at the very beginning of infancy.
Well, it's like they say, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's a lot easier to not gain too much weight than it is to spend a life struggling with trying to get weight off,
Then the next steps are to have a good home meal system where you're having fresh foods, not a lot of fast foods, not a lot of takeout foods. Farm fresh is the best, of course. But even, say, if you live in an area where they don't have, say, farm stands all the time, but to go to the grocery store and try to go for the fruits and vegetables and all the natural proteins and things like that, instead of McDonald's.
Right. And the thing is, in this day and age, we do know what we need to do. It's just that we're not necessarily doing it. But that's the thing. I mean, when you're already making all these big changes to life because there's a new member of your family arriving, it's actually a great time to restructure routines
in the family
for the family as a whole, and recommit and make a new focus on, hey, it's not just about, you know, the child. Let's create a healthier family. Let's live a healthier lifestyle for everyone, because it's going to be very hard, obviously, if you're not following your own guidelines. And, you know,
and children do watch the example that you set more than what you're saying.
Do, not what you say.
That's exactly right. And they even start watching you before they can eat. They're watching you eat, and eventually you'll see in their face they're actually figuring it out. Oh, this is something that people are doing. I'm not doing it yet, but I'm seeing what they're doing.
They are sponges for information, and they are watching.
So to set a good example is to eat healthy yourselves. Older children in the family to eat healthy, to try to get your schools to have healthy school lunches and or send lunches with the children to school if you feel your school program isn't up to the standard you'd like them to be. And just do as much to set a good example for the young child as possible.
And reap the benefits yourself. You know, you might really enjoy a healthier lifestyle and being a little more active, eating better. And
also talk to the families of their friends and try to get a co-op going and or any kind of agreements that you can with family friends. Obviously the child's going to be older, but going to friends' houses and things like that. What kinds of snacks are they having there? Maybe the mothers could get together and make snacks together that are healthy for their children. That would be enjoyable. A lot of younger children enjoy making food. So to get them in on the process of looking up something that's really healthy. Peanut butter is a good protein, for example. Obviously this would be an older child, but peanut butter on celery or something like that. Ants on a log with the raisins. Ants on a log. But there's lots of cucumbers, carrots, and all kinds of healthy snacks for a child.
And because we learn what is quote unquote tasty or not tasty along the way. And, and there's a lot of conditioning that goes along the way. So excellent.
Unfortunately, television, which is a big part of children's lives, which is not the most optimal, but there's a lot of advertisements on TV. And you have to be able to at least counteract that somewhat in your home situation and show them what's really healthy. And just because it tells you to buy such and such a pizza or something like that daily on the television doesn't mean that that's healthy eating.
And just as it's never too soon to start creating good habits, even with very young children around the eating itself, it's never too early to be helping children become critical thinkers about information and realizing, but remember, this is someone who's trying to sell you something.
And, they're selling products.
And that doesn't mean that it's the best thing for you. And you can again make it sort of a fun experiment to figure out, hey, do these other things actually taste better, and are they actually do they make you feel better?
So if you have an older child, preschooler or school-age child, take them shopping with you, help them in the whole process of food shopping, preparation, and they'll be more apt to eat the healthy things. There's all kinds of programs where you can go to farms and or local farmers and observe their healthy farm growing of vegetables and produce and whatever.
Excellent. Well, so the best way to combat childhood obesity is to not have childhood obesity in the first place. And so it's about paying attention to the patterns that are being set really from the get-go, from before you would normally even think about it, prevent the problem.
And genetics do play a large role. So if you know in your family the genetics is not favorable, then you really have to work especially hard to fight your genetics, because that's an additional problem. It's not your fault, but they're definitely there, and you want to do as much as possible for yourself and the child.
The whole point is to maximize the health benefit you can, but none of us chooses some of the set parameters that we come into this world with. I mean, so you work with the cards you've been dealt.
That's right.
But you try to be a good poker player, and you play your hand as best you can. So.
That's right. That's good.
Excellent. Well, this has been very helpful. I mean, again, I would not have thought about really being that attentive that early, but of course it makes absolute perfect sense. So, let's create healthier families, healthier lifestyles for everyone, and start very young to set those
start
patterns.
from the baby. Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, Judy, we'll be back with more topics in the future. So thanks for being our guest today on Mainline Healthy Living.
Thank you very much, Mark.